And so the first two obviously don't serve you. The third sometimes serves you depending on what you do as a result of it, right? And so that actually, those big three has just been a really easy filter. Is like, oh, am I blaming circumstances? Am I blaming other people? Am I blaming me? And obviously you want to skip to you because that's the only thing you can do anything about.
The idea that all of the things that you're working toward, all of the dreams, all of those things are going to stop. There is going to be a day when you no longer answer your emails. Like, I think about this. I think about how many, even now, right? Emails not being around for that long of widespread, what, maybe 25 years, something like that. Most people have had an email address, maybe 20 years. All of the people that have died between then and now, they just have email inboxes, just accumulating stuff from, lots of newsletters, lots of online retailers. But there will also be people expecting a reply.
Right.
And saying, why hasn't this guy replied to me? And it's like, because he's dead.
Yeah. There's just thinking, I mean, I think a lot about the end of my life. Maybe it's a borderline obsession of mine, but thinking about like what the last 5 years are going to look like, and also thinking about my cognitive decline, which is going to be inevitable on the back half of my, life. And it gets really tricky when you think about fluid intelligence, which peaks when you're like between 25 and 35. And then like at our age right now, it's just all going down, right? Yeah. Like we're beginning the slow decline. And in thinking about that, I was like, I will actually never be sharper than I am today for the rest of my life. And the idea that there will be young people who will replace me because humans are all replaceable, we have proven that. And so when I think about that, it decreases the stakes of these huge dreams that if I don't accomplish them, I will be upset or else. And so it's like we have these big or else's, like we want to threaten the universe. Like, I can't stand it if this does not occur. It's like, and the universe remains unchanged and the universe is undefeated.
Correct. Well, that's why I was my Twitter bio for a long time was locally reversing entropy.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I just love that idea.
So it's like you have these big or else's, like
you have the entire universe, this force entropy, which is going to inevitably destroy everything.
Yeah.
Not just everything you care about, everything that could have created anything that anything could have cared about. And it's going to destroy it.
Yeah.
But for a brief period of time, a few decades, you locally stop the most powerful force in the universe. I think that's so fucking cool.
I don't know if you saw this, but Bezos has this one page that was just brilliant. And he basically paraphrases Richard Dawkins talking about how over time, all organisms revert to their environment. Literally, like the temperature of your body once you die eventually just normalizes with the environment. The acidity of what's going on, like inside of your body, normalizes. And then eventually like, you become one with your environment. And so it's the exact same concept. And so Bezos was talking about that quote, which was about biology. But he said, this is, originally about biology, but so much more so about the way that we want to live, which is that everything around you will try and force you to dilute yourself. It will force you to try and merge in, fit in with your surroundings. And he said, like, this force is natural and it's inevitable, and yet we have to fight it. And the fact that it's hard does not make it less worth it. And I thought that was like, it was just, I mean, I reposted it because I thought it was so elegant.
It's like a cosmic regression to the mean.
Yeah, it's exactly that. That's exactly what it is. And yeah, so I think if we all know that we're going to, the regression to the mean is inevitable. And again, I think about these things that are, I want to say, I don't know if humiliating is the word, but like humility inducing. But like the idea that I'll die and then like worms will eat my body. Just like a very simple thing like that. Or if I die, like I was like, what if I just died by an animal killing me? Like sometimes I think about that and I'm like, I would just be its lunch. Like everything that I've done up to this point, it's like my arm will feed its child and like my thigh will feed it. And then like they'll leave some of it for the carrion.
It'd be a good meal.
Yeah,
it would be a good meal.
It'd be one good meal.
Yeah.
And it just like, it just takes the stakes of like, I'm so important, right? All of these goals matter to just like, I could be lunch. And that kind of, gives me one large exhale.
The single greatest skill you can develop is the ability to stay in a good mood in the absence of things to be in a good mood about.
I think that tweet has been my theme for 2025. It's funny because that was the most shared tweet I've ever had. and it was like it was almost
Single greatest skill you can develop is the ability to stay in a good mood.
not the opposite of ironic. It was fitting, right? It was completely fitting for the year, and it's been because like this year I've had I would say a series of unfortunate events that has occurred, and it's really tested my tools, right? Tools in the tool belt for reframing reality so that I can make my experience less, miserable. And so I thought about that. It's like if I were to boil everything down of all the skills that you can learn, if everything that we do eventually becomes irrelevant, then the single greatest skill that you can develop is being in a great mood in the absence of things to be in a great mood about. And so one of the other frames on this is most people don't question someone who's in a bad mood. Like, I'm just in a bad mood. So it's like, well, if you can be in a bad mood for no reason, it's like you might as well be in a good mood for no reason, because that one at least serves you. And so I've been trying to exercise, like, because there's on one degree, there's like, let's count things to be grateful for. On the other side, it's like, why do I have to have things to be grateful for in order to be in a good mood? Like, why is trying to find things a requirement of being in that mood? Like, can I not find things and still choose to be in a good mood? Because I've certainly not had things to be in a bad mood about and been in a bad mood. And so I've been trying to flex that, which is like, sure, we can find things to be grateful for, and when those things pop up, yes, and of course it's a practice, you get better at it. But like, what if I can just be in a good mood? And so I've just tried to break that relationship between the two, because then it makes it contingent on something that I can find.
How successful have you been at that?
Mediocre.
Well, look, I think it's a lovely idea in isolation, in theory, but I'm not convinced about how effective it is in practice, for the reason that humans have a negativity bias. It's our psychological entropy
100%.
and your ability to detect things that are a risk to you significantly better than your ability to detect things that are just pleasant. Like this morning, I texted you and I was like, hey man, like I really love the feeling I have of anticipation on a morning before we do a podcast. That's a normal, boring, mundane source of pleasure to me.
Yeah.
If I'm not really, really training myself to notice that,
Yeah.
it just fucking falls away with the fact that, I asked for almond milk and I bet this would have been better with like whole milk.
If that's the thing that ruins the day. And the thing is you do notice it though, right? You do notice that. So I've had one of my themes this year has been focusing on moments, and on both the positive and the negative. And so like when we think back on, if I think back on the last year, right, I don't remember probably 95% of the year. Like I did the same things. And so it's like, it just didn't get recorded. Like nothing notable happened. And so really like when we think about a year, we really just recall a handful of moments, and that's it. And those moments in time are usually very short. And so I've been trying to think about the bad seasons as, well, maybe it wasn't a bad season. Maybe I had 5 bad days, or really 5 bad moments that I then thought about for the entire season, and turned what would have otherwise been 5 minutes times 5 into an entirely bad year. And so it's like, okay, well, if we can do that in the negative, can we do in the positive? Which is, obviously the thing to exercise. But to the point that you said earlier about our ability to detect threat and risk at such better accuracy than our ability to detect good things, it's so interesting, because if you use that side of your brain, not to derail us, but like I think that has been one of the things that's helped me a tremendous amount in business. Because when I think about a business and I want to grow it, for example, I would think, okay, what are all the things that can destroy this business? And this is Charlie Munger, this isn't me. But basically he says, invert, always invert. And Einstein said that too. And it's because like you get to use this way stronger horsepower engine of like, how do I grow my business? You can obviously think that way, but the alternative would be like, how would I absolutely destroy this business in the fewest possible moves? And then when you list out those moves, you're like, cool, now let's do the opposite of that. And that has been, honestly, some of the sources of my greatest kind of creative moments have come from these apparently obvious things that would kill us. Well, what if we did the even more obvious thing and did the opposite of what would destroy us? And it's worked better than I deserve.
So this is the problem.
Yeah.
Ako naman,
you can be
kung saan mabubusog,
rewarded
yun ako.
professionally for
Tulad
focusing on
nitong
things that you do
San
not want to
Marino
focus on
Corner,
personally.
kahit saan
And
mang lugar pa
Ryan
tayo
Long taught me
pumunta,
this.
hindi tayo magugutom.
He
Open
was
mo lang yung
talking
laptop,
about
tapos
how
diretso sa ibabang
he's a
kanin.
comedian,
Kaya
Canadian
ang
comedian,
sarap
really funny guy.
i-pressurize.
He spends all
For
of this
me,
time,
San Marais is
dialing
life.
in these bits and obsessing over how it could be better. And then he says to himself, yeah, but I don't need to do that in your relationships. No, can you let that go when it comes to the way that you show up for your partner or your friends or your body image or whatever? You don't get to compartmentalize stuff like that. And it is a very unfortunate irony of the world that the skill set you often need to become successful in business is the one you need to get rid of to be happy in your life.
Yes. So I was thinking about what you were saying earlier with regards to risk and our ability to detect it. So the other part of that that's been really interesting is we also, not only do we detect more threats, we also overemphasize how catastrophic they could be. And the converse of that is we rarely identify the upside. And when we do, we typically underestimate the upside. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't talk about as much. Obviously, I always have a business, hat on, literally. But I think about this because I think this is where, like, you said at the very beginning that people complain because they cannot accurately view reality. And so if we tie that to this concept, then it means that people will disproportionately blame the universe and then perceive significantly greater risk for them asking a girl out, starting a business, taking a loan, asking a stranger to buy something, making a podcast, and for fear of what other people on the internet will say or people who know them, right? And so we catastrophize this side, but the flip side is, and you hear this a lot when people, do make it and whatnot. They're like, I never dreamed it would be this big. Now, some people are obsessive and like absolutely have thought through everything. I fall more on that side. On the other hand, though, a lot of people do get there and they're like, I never thought it was going to be this big. And it's because we typically just underemphasize the upside, which is where, from the business perspective, it's like that's where the alpha is. That's where the outperformance exists, where most people think, hey, this bet, it could go to zero. And you're like, I don't think it's going to go to zero. But even if it did go to zero, I have a 10x here. And so if I have a 50% shot at a 10x and the other 50 is zero, I should take that shot every single time, knowing that I'm going to be wrong half the time. It still makes sense to take. And so I think people are not good at making those risk-adjusted return bets, obviously financially, but even in the very micro aspect of our lives. And so we talked earlier about the cosmic irrelevance and the frame of the veteran. But there's a third frame that I think about a lot, which is I call it play it out. And so it's like let's sit in there because again, fear exists in the vague, not in the specific,
and in the resistance.
Yes. And so like when we have these specificities of like, okay, I'm going to start I can't start a podcast. Like, okay, it's this big vague thing. But no, like, let's play it out. Like, let's see what actually would happen. So I'm going to upload something and then people don't listen to it. Okay, well, they didn't listen to it. Okay, well, then that's not a problem. Okay, let's see tons of people listen to it, which I don't know how that magically happens, but let's say tons of people listen to it and they all hate it. Okay, immediately you have this anxiety that we're no, but let's play it out. Like, what happens next? It's like, okay, is it going to change what I eat? Is it going to change where I sleep? Okay, let's say I all of a sudden I lose all the money that I have. It's like, okay, well, I probably have a bunch of people that if I really needed to sleep on their couch or in a spare bedroom, I could do that. Okay, so I'm not really going to be homeless. And if I really didn't have enough money for food, I can go to a homeless shelter and get food, right? So it's like, wait, so my worst case scenario is like, I have shelter and I have food and I'm still breathing air. So that's the downside. And so there's this catastrophizing that our brains are meant to keep us alive. We literally think if we fail, we die. Like everyone will ostracize us from the group and we will be alone and die.
Yep.
And so just actually playing it out, not one step, but like two more steps after that, you're like, okay, so my actual downside risk is nothing, but my upside is everything I've wanted. And even if I'm at 50% off on that, it's still worth the shot.
In other news, this episode is brought to you by Momentous. If your workouts feel flat, your recovery's slow, or you've just been feeling off, it might not be your training plan or diet. It might be something a bit more boring, like your testosterone. So, if you're not performing well in the gym or the bedroom, or you just want to improve your testosterone naturally, Tonkat Ali is a fantastic research-backed place to start. And when it's stacked with zinc, this can make a huge improvement in testosterone, strength, recovery, and energy, which is why I'm such a huge fan of Momentus's zinc. It supports testosterone, it boosts vitality, and helps keep everything running like it should. And if you're still unsure, Momentus offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it for 29 days, and if you don't like it, they will give you your money back. Plus, they ship internationally. Right now, you can get a 35% discount on your first subscription and that 30-day money-back guarantee by going to the link in the description below or heading to livemomentus.com/modernwisdom and using the code modernwisdom at checkout. That's livemomentus.com/modernwisdom and modern wisdom at checkout. Have you heard Ferris's idea? The world rewards the specific ask and punishes the vague wish.
I like it. Very Ferris.
And it's getting to this point here, which is fear exists in the vague and it exists in the resistance. Going back to the single greatest skill you can develop is the ability to stay in a great mood in the absence of things to be in a great mood about. Again, I think it's fantastic in theory. I wonder how much it works in practice. Both of us, everybody would love to be in a great mood for no reason.
Yeah.
So I guess you can perhaps try and cultivate, I can try and be positive when there's nothing to be positive about. I would say that the other neurobiologically informed solution to this is to find increasingly small things to be increasingly happy about. So, that was a really good training session.
Yeah.
And, look, it was annoying because half of the gym's under construction and I got some dust on my shoes.
Yeah.
But, that was a good session. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Rick Hansen, who wrote Hardwiring Happiness, is 25 years old, hardcore neuroscience guy, Dharma teacher, meditation expert, life person. Fucking awesome intersection of it all. And he has this wonderful acronym of HEAL. Have a positive experience. Enrich it. By enrich it, he means sort of sit with it. So you allow it to, you actually notice it. Absorb, which is imagine that sinking down and becoming a part of you. And then the L is optional, which is link. So you can link it to a bad experience and you can oscillate between the two to help bring down the volume of a bad experience. So right now, there's nothing else I want to be doing right now than having this conversation.
Yeah.
Having a good experience. But that just washes by you. And then you think in retrospect, oh, wasn't that was like a good thing at the time? But you don't ever actually arrive at having a good experience.
Yeah.
So the enrich bit's important. So I'm like, this is cool. Like, I'm enjoying having this conversation. Absorb, imagining it sinking down and becoming a part of you, which is basically spending 30 seconds to a minute, letting that emotion sort of fill you out as opposed to noticing it cognitively. Like allowing it to go below the neck would be a good way to put it. Okay, this is going to go below the neck, this sensation. I'm actually, like, people are going to watch this and it's going to make them happy. It's going to give them insights about their life. And isn't that lovely? It's the most obvious thing, which is, I mean, this is a pretty grand thing as things go. It's certainly more grand than like, I had a fucking nice coffee or something like that. So I wonder whether one of the skills that you can develop in the pursuit of becoming a person that's in a great mood in the absence of things to be in a great mood about is to become increasingly proficient at finding things to be in a great mood about. And I'm aware that in your frame, that still makes it contingent on external, which is going to be an issue.
I'm still happy to be in a good mood when there is things to be in a good mood about, for sure.
If you can become increasingly skilled at finding things to be in a good mood about, I get the sense, especially if life's kicking you in the dick, which it's done to both of us for the last while. And I also think that it's an interesting comment, realization from you, given that you've been kicked in the dick, because you think, this is an insight that you will only learn when things aren't ostensibly going well.
Yeah.
Because it's the sort of realization that you get when inertia and momentum and bravado and confidence and upward trajectory are all taken away from you. And you go, I'm having to do the budgeting equivalent, like the mental equivalent of living on pennies. From a well-being perspective.
I want to say we talked about this 4 podcasts ago, this specific thing, which was that I have this, maybe it's sadistic is the right word, but like I do take some sadistic pleasure in, or masochist, I don't remember what the word is, but when you enjoy your own pain. Whenever I have these prolonged moments of suffering that kind of break past what I would consider the normal variance of life, right? It's like, this broke through the barrier of shitty. Um, I do have this history of having significantly larger improvements that happen post dip, right? So it's like we kind of get the opportunity to buy the dip for our own negative consequences. And I've bought the dip at almost every time, and it's rewarded me disproportionately. And so I hate to make a parallel between like the economy or the stock market and your own internal happiness, but I think that's what's happening right now. But that thought process has shortened some of the shittiness that happens, because then it's like, okay, well, it has to be worth it, right? I have to make this worth it, right? Because this sucks. So what can I learn from this? What can I be better from this as a result? And so like, obviously there's things that I've been working on in order to improve. But beyond that, because gratitude has been so difficult for me, which I've talked about before. Like I've never once said I am the champion of happiness, but in an effort to try and make it easier for me, I was like, well, how do you operationalize gratitude, right? And so the simplest way that I have is imagine something terrible, and then remember that has not happened. Like it's like I've yet to find, like, that has been the simplest way. Like, be grateful. It's like, what do I do to be grateful? Like, no, like that more. And it's like that it's like it's been difficult. So it's like, okay, and on the flip side, imagine something that you love, imagine it's gone, and then remember that it's back again. And so that's, I think, the operationalizing of those moments, which is, I have this coffee moment. Man, if I never had another coffee moment like this again, this would mean more to me. Okay. And by doing that, and by remembering what it would be like to not have this, then this thing now in the moment becomes worth more. And so it's basically creating a wider discrepancy between the moment we're trying to find gratitude with and something else, in order to basically manufacture a delta. Because I think that to your point, like, we're so much more sensitive to the negative delta than we are on the positive delta, that we have to make the positive delta massive. And so how do you make moments massive? It's like, well, then we just have to drop the floor out and then remember that now all of a sudden we went from the bottom of the pool back to the surface, even though we're not above the water.
It's like playing pretend.
So I'm 100% playing pretend. All gratitude is playing pretend.
Sure, I think if something happens and you're grateful for it, that's you enriching something that exists. But what we're doing,
what is enriching me?
Really noticing it. Because things that you should be grateful for will often pass you by without you noticing them.
So we notice them originally, and then we notice that we notice them?
Do you notice them?
Oh, I know. I have to remember to be grateful, and then I have to go look for shit.
Yeah. Yes. But even as it happens, right? And this is the point. As it happens, I'm here. I went to Rufus du Sol at Q2 Stadium in Austin, which is where the football club plays. And Rufus du Sol, great music, real cool, and with a ton of my best friends. It's finishing at a time that's not insane. You know, the weather was lovely.
But by 6.
Yeah. I was in bed by 7:30. But it wasn't that loud. The sound wasn't that good at the football club. Well, everybody was like, wish it was louder, wish it was louder. Because it wasn't. We were at the very back of the stadium. Beautiful view, but not fantastic for sound. You go, dude, you're watching fucking Rufus du Sol in a stadium with your friends in Austin. Weather's great. Everyone's got a beer or a sparkling water in their hands, having a great time. Like, this is something that you can notice in the moment. You have pick your direction, Western man.
Yeah.
And you are picking the sound's not good.
Yeah.
But in your business, you are rewarded over and over and over again for realizing that the sound's not good. This I've done this before.
Yeah.
Are you zoomed? Can you do this? So if you look very, very closely here, I might even have to get out of the way for the light. The alignment of the Instagram logo with the F from follow us here and the N from Newtonic below is out of alignment by what looks like 1 point. It's less than a millimeter. Guess who noticed? This guy. I have been rewarded throughout my entire professional career for noticing things that other people didn't, and then claiming that they were a sufficiently big issue that we should actually change them.
Yeah. Reverse gratitude. Like,
and yet,
this is a small thing. It is now a big.
It's a massive problem, because you win in the weeds.
Yeah.
But you don't win in the weeds when it comes to happiness, unless you are doing it in the other direction.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to, and this is so hard. And this is
this is why we enjoy talking about it, because just for everyone who's listening, Chris and I had a conversation prior to this, being like, what are you thinking about right now? And so we're both actually like in the same vein of thought, which is why both of us were looking forward to having this, conversation with you guys.
Yes.
About this difficulty, because one of the other things that's come up with regards to gratitude and happiness has been, there's a second conversation that I think happens internally, at least for me, which is that like I will judge myself on being not as happy as I should be, or not, like, hey, I didn't notice anything I'd be grateful about. You fuck. Right? And so trying to separate the fact that I like, to take this to the absolute extreme, why should I be grateful? Why should I be happy? Why do I demand of my life that it must be happy? Like that I must be happy during it. That's a demand. And so I try to decrease my demands in general as a habit, as a personal practice. And so I've been thinking about that concept in and of itself, because the earliest part of my career, I just was done with happiness. I was like, screw it. Yeah, it's just like, it's irrelevant. And so now I'm getting to the point where like, well, it would be nice to also have this while I have all these other things.
I'm aware that this is a very sort of basic bitch insight, but I do think that given the starting point that you were at, and to a lesser degree the starting point I was at, is like a Hormozy light, like lifestyle approach. That's a big deal to make this pivot, and I think it's one of the reasons I was particularly interested in talking to you today, because I would say the last, 3 years or so since we've been recording together,
Yeah.
from a architecture perspective, it's largely been the same.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter how you feel, the hard work just needs doing. Hard things are hard, that's why they're hard, and disregard the emotions that are getting in the way of it. And I do think that works for a good while, and it can really propel you to great things. But I also think that sometimes stuff, you have such a orthogonal change in the way that your life's put together, where you go, I might have exhausted this fuel source. I might need to switch from booster rockets to something else.
Yeah.
And you've got, as you said earlier on, about how you take small bad moments, maybe very impressive bad moments, and then you scale them out.
Yeah.
You're not having a bad year. You've had a few bad days that you're thinking about for the rest of the year. I've found it helpful when I'm in a bad season, like I'm in right now, to just focus on having a good day. A good day in a bad season is a bite-sized victory. String a few of those in a row, and a bad season feels less hard. I'm pretty sure the difference between a happy life and an unhappy one doesn't come down to how many good or bad days you have, but which days you think about over and over again. In some seasons of life, maintaining is winning.
Couldn't have put it better myself. This has been my big focus right now is, and I'm not the first person to say this, but just winning the day. And Bill Ackman had this, I heard him on a podcast talking about this hard season where he was getting divorced. He just lost $4 billion in Pershing Square, his investment firm. And he was not him today. He was earlier on his career. So, I mean, it was just the worst. And because he had lost his money, the divorce was for way more money because it was based on his net worth that didn't exist anymore. And it was just a terrible slog. And he said one of the difficult parts about that period is that there was no one thing that was like, oh, I can tackle this today. Like, you're not going to finish the divorce today. You're not going to undo the $4 billion loss today. And so it's like when you have these larger, more complex negative things that do scale, it's like, how do you navigate through that? And for anyone who's listening right now, it's like, maybe it's the bad breakup. Maybe it's or maybe you're getting divorced, right? Or maybe it's like the business isn't working the way you want. It's like, and there's like 10 things that you have to fix. And it's like, well, I can't fix that change in the logo until the next run. So I just have to see this every single day.
Yeah.
And so he had this very tactical advice, which I liked a lot, which is he just tried to make progress, and that was it. And he said, in a day, it's almost negligible, right? But at 30 days, you're like, okay, I moved this, and at 90, you're like, wow, this is really materially changed in what's happened. Now, does this mean that our mood is still being dictated by circumstance? Yes, I'll be honest. Yes, it does. But I think many of us have this ideal. We'd love to be able to be in a great mood in the absence of things to be in a great mood about. But sometimes progress is the W. Like, maintaining in some seasons is winning. And I've had to tell myself that also, that we can have these different, like on Business Vector, I'm murdering it. I'm crushing there. But like, I tore my quad this year, which sucked. I had painful. I have a neck thing that's just been bugging the hell out of me, right? So it's like, and I have two great fears in life. One is that I lose my mind, which is really just more that I'll be a burden to everybody else. I won't know because my mind will be lost, right? And the other is chronic pain. Those are like my two great fears in life because chronic pain is really tough. Like the first thing you think about when you open your eyes in the morning is pain. And it's like, fuck. It's like, and now I have to be in a good mood, right? Because I demand this of myself. And so when in navigating those scenarios, just trying to chip away and also to take the reverse of, I had this one great podcast today. I'm going to make that thing the thing that's making this a great day. And then if I can make that great day, then maybe it could be a great week. And then trying to expand those, basically like let those good moments eat up the season. And I made a conscious decision on May 1st. And I think did I send you the screenshot of my HRV?
Yes.
So it was May 1st. I was like, fuck this. I was like, I told Layla, I was like, I have decreed that the rest of the year will be good. And so I'm putting so much mental effort into this, which is why this is so timely from us talking about it. In actively trying to minimize all the down things and super focus on those moments and be like, cool, I had that good moment. That's my day. Day's made. And I'm trying to even say that more. Like, oh, this podcast made my day. This podcast made my week. Now I used to think, oh, this made my week. When someone would say something small, I'd be like, that's what made your week? Like, you must not have a lot going on.
So true.
Right? Like, I like my own judge machine, right?
That's lame.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
a stupid thing. Oh my God. How feeble, how small is your life that something so unimpressive is a source of gratitude to you?
Yeah. For a week or a month.
And yet,
Yeah.
your life is made up of small days like this. That is what life is.
Yeah.
And if your expectation of life is that it's going to be, well, until I play the main stage at EDC, until I make the $1 billion, until I get married to the love of my life, until I get these things, you're just holding your happiness hostage until something great happens.
Yeah.
And what if, again, what we said before, what if something small could be something great?
Yeah. And it exists in the specific. Those like the tiny moments. And that, so that's been a huge focus.
Boring victories.
But trying to make it, basically I've had to recalibrate my entire scale to how little of a thing can happen that makes my day. How little of a thing can happen that makes my week. How little of a thing can make my month. And like, how crazy would it be if a year from now I say 2025 was a great year. You know, I woke up pain-free for probably like 70% of my days. That was a great year. But like, I got to have coffee with Layla in the morning once a week, and that filled me up for the whole week. Like if I can, and I'm putting, so anyone who's listening to this, like I'm putting a huge amount of my discretionary effort into this because it's my belief that right now, what will prevent me from achieving my ultimate goals? Because that motherfucker's not gone. The thing that will stop me from achieving my ultimate goals is running out of steam because, and this may not be real for some people, but like I don't need to do this. Like I don't need to work this hard. And so I have to I'd prefer to make the ride more enjoyable.
We'll get back to talking to Alex in just 1 second, but first I need to tell you about Element. If you often feel tired, you might not need more sleep, you might not need more caffeine, you might just be dehydrated. Proper hydration isn't about drinking sufficient water, it's about having enough electrolytes to allow your body to properly absorb those fluids. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium with no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients or any other BS. It plays a critical role in reducing muscle cramps and fatigue while optimizing brain health and curbing cravings. That's why it's used by everyone, from Dr. Andrew Huberman to Dr. Mike Israetel and Olympic athletes and FBI sniper teams as well. This orange flavor here in a cold glass of water is how I've started my morning every single day for over 3 years now, and they have a no questions asked refund policy. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll just give you your money back and you don't even need to return the box. That's how confident they are that you love it. Plus, they offer free shipping in the US. Right now, you can get a free sample pack of Element's most popular flavors with your first purchase by going to the link in the description below or heading to drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom. That's drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom. Amazon.com/. Modern Wisdom. For free shipping in the US. Right now, you can get a free sample pack of Element's most popular flavors with your first. That's a huge departure, I think.
Prefer. I will still fucking ride at dawn.
That's a huge departure, though. And look, dude, the conversation that we had the other week, and I think the one that we're having now, it might be less Goggins, Jocko pilled, screaming alpha motivation, fucking sleep token track over the top of it edit thing. However, one of the things that I've noticed when seeing somebody that goes from a position like the one that you were in, or the light equivalent that I was, to talking in this sort of a way, there's an awful lot more humanity, I think, that people can see in that, because work until your eyes bleed. Nobody cares about your emotions. Fuck you, dude. Just go harder. Although it sounds fantastic in theory, it's very impersonal, and it sounds mechanistic. It sounds robotic. It sounds detached, and that's fantastic. And you can do that for a while. You can completely disregard the way that you feel for a while.
Yeah.
But only for a while. And sooner or later, the entropy of positive affect being a motivator, the fact that enjoyment is efficiency, does tend to catch up with you, and it'll catch up with you in sneaky ways, right? The quad tear, who knows, and I'm completely open to this, who knows whether the quad tear would have happened if the book had been finished in twice as long.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Your system sort of contributes to itself in a global sort of stress-based manner.
It's, you know what's weird is that the thing that's made the season hard is not actually like work ethic or even time constraints, because like I work pretty much every day all day, but like that's been baseline, and that doesn't really bother me very much. Like not even bother me very much. I like doing that. The thing is that the nature of what fills that time. And so like if I have all the things that are not work that are related to work that I must do as a result so that I can get back to doing the work I like doing. Like me writing a book is the most is my favorite thing in the entire world. Us doing these podcasts is some of the best moments that I get to have in my life. Like twice a month, I'll have business owners who come out that are bigger, that are like kind of like not portfolio ready, but like they're doing usually like, you know, $5 to $25 million a year, like right in that range. And I spend a whole day with those 10 businesses, and it's like, and I tell them, I'm like, this is the fucking best. Like, I love this. This is my favorite thing in my entire life. But it's everything that's not that. And Bezos talks about the overhead, right? And I think it's when the overhead starts to become a disproportionate amount of your time. And I think that at every level of at least entrepreneurship, I get these periods where the overhead just become bigger and bigger and bigger until I fix it. Right. And so like for us, I think I told you, I'll tell everybody publicly, like I had, I think 8 or 9 lawsuits within like 30 days in the beginning of this year. And so I was like, okay, that sucked. And then I'll tell you the story that happened on top of this, just to give everyone some context. Layla had a health thing. She went to the doctor to get it checked out. And our EA was with her. And I was like, hey, how's it going? What's going on? And she had said earlier, like, she can't get in. I was like, what? What does that even mean? And then the next text I got from the EA was, she has cancer. And so I remember reading that text and being like, okay, all right, this is reality now. Like, this is now the new frame. And I sat with it just long enough to enrich and absorb that concept.
Sick.
Yeah. And so then I was like, all right, so I'm thinking, okay, like chemo, like what do we need to do diet? Like I'm already thinking through this stuff. And I was like, okay, what kind of cancer is it? What state? Like that's what I'm going with this. So I asked for more details, and she was like, oh my God, no, the reason that it was delayed was because the front desk girl has cancer and she just messed something up, and that was what she was using as her excuse. Layla doesn't have cancer. And I was like, oh, she does have this other stuff, right? But she doesn't have cancer. And the thing is that Layla, after that occurred, when I hung out with her later that night, was, obviously annoyed at whatever issue she was dealing with. But for me, I was like, I saw her and I just gave her this big hug, and I was like, hey, you don't have cancer. And so it's crazy. There's this exact example of gratitude, this terrible thing, and just kidding, it's not a thing anymore. And now I'm really grateful that you have the terrible thing that you have now, but at least it's not cancer. And so, to bring this back, that all still happened in the same period of time. And yeah, Chris mentioned this earlier. I don't know if it was before this pod, but like I there was a mishap with printing my next book that's coming out, and the equivalent of 1.5 acres of trees basically became unusable because there were sufficient errors in the book that I couldn't in good in good conscience, kind of like the can. It's like, how bad of a mess up does it have to be on the can for me not to sell it, right? And like I had to have this internal. I was like, maybe I could make it a thing, like, hey, our books had some mess ups, and I was like, no one's gonna care. No one's gonna care. They're just gonna remember that they got a fucked up book. And so I had to destroy those, right? And so I have like 7 more massive ones, but I'm not going to get into it. But the beauty of this entire thing was I got to have this experience of being forced to say, okay, is there a world where I'm going to have to endure more of this? And the answer to that, if I continue to do what I'm doing, is yes. And so I need to build a legal team, which is what I've now built. And and so there's these things, and all of a sudden now, am I better at gratitude, or did I solve the problem? I don't know. I'd be like, really, I want to be real, like, I don't know. But as of May 1st, things are a little better. And my actual health, for anybody who's a health nut, my HRV average was about 32. And I'd have many, many low 20s days for a 36-year-old active male. Pretty bad. And since May 1st, I'm up like 15 points on my HRV, and I have changed nothing. I eat the same, I work out the same. I'm pretty routine oriented, and the only thing that has changed was the decision that 2025, I'm not tossing out 2025. Like, and I started in the beginning of the year, and I was talking to a good friend of mine, and he was like, dude, fuck bad year. He was like, he's like, stop fucking saying that. And I was like, you're right, I should stop saying that. It will be a handful of moments over 5 months that were spread out. And then the back 7, I was like, I can fucking murder it.
And turn this around.
Yeah, we're turning the ship around, right? And so that's it. I've actually been like, it's almost been like an exciting thing for me right now. So I have a little bit of a smile because I'm pumped for it.
Personal observation. You get absolutely better returns at the top ends of achievement because oftentimes assets pool to the winners. The problem is, to achieve the highest levels, you have to give up proportional amounts of the things you hoped the achievements would get you. There comes a time when the hard work you have to do is learning that you can't work any harder any longer, and that you have to change what got you here to what will get you to where you want to go. You can work to get anything you want, but you have to sacrifice the other things you want to keep it, and that's sometimes harder than the work.
Yeah, 2025.
In the day.
Yeah. The hard remains the same. Actually, so I've given this a huge amount of thought. So, like, what makes something hard? Like, just in and of itself, like, what actually makes something hard? And so, if we think about this as an aversive stimulus or a negative stimulus, then you have, because habituation happens on both sides. And this is what I think is so fascinating, because it's like, okay, well, I wanted this big thing to happen. I wanted the Rolls Royce. I wanted the Ferrari, whatever. Saved my whole life, and here I am, right? And I was happy for a week, and then all of a sudden I got used to it, right? So I was like, why can't I habituate to the suck? Right? Why can't I habituate to the suck? And the thing is that you do. The only thing is that what makes the suck keep sucking is what makes punishment effective, which is increasing intensity and variety. And so if you want to effectively punish someone, you can't just keep punishing them the same way. You have to increase intensity and change how you do it. And the beautiful thing is that life doesn't fight fair. And so life will change the intensity and will give you more variety. How many times have you been like, I didn't know life could suck in this way? Like, this is a new one. Wow. Like, you spin the roulette of life and you're like, oh, here's another one that sucks.
My dick was kicked from another angle.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Had no idea. And so in thinking about that, it was like, okay, I think the reason that the hard persists is because the nature of the currency that you pay or that you exchange for the thing that you want changes. Because in the very beginning, you basically have to conquer your friends and family who tell you that this might be a bad idea. Okay, fine, you get over that. And then you have to conquer yourself in the most basic level of like, I have to do something. Okay, so you start taking action, you start learning how to learn stuff, which is learning through failure and learning through this. So you start doing that, and you realize you're not going to die if you fail. Okay, then after that, then it's like, okay, but then now you have this dramatic skill deficiency, right? So you have to very quickly level up in a ton of different things in whatever domain you're in, right? And then that has many failure loops that which is learning through failure and learning through this. So you start doing that, and you realize you're not going to die if you fail. Okay, then after that, then it's like, okay, but then now you have this dramatic skill deficiency, right? So you have to very quickly level up in a ton of different things in whatever domain you're in, right? And then that has many failure loops that you start taking out.
So I'm writing an essay on cats. Cats in art history. I'm an art history major, and this final is due on Friday. Same day, I'm going on a road trip with my best friend Gabby. Luckily, I write with Grammarly. What once took me hours now takes minutes. So I can focus on what matters most, my voice. We begin in ancient Egypt, and then the Renaissance, but also Impressionism. And, of course, the internet. Hey!
Hey, have you started packing?
Totally. I have not.
Finish that paper. You got this.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, back to it. Time to double check my facts
We
and
deserve the
citations.
best when we put in all our best.
Oops, I
That
made a
should
few
be our
debated
standard.
claims.
Yeah, again and again. I
Fixing
choose
those.
Pure Foods corned beef.
Nice.
Every can,
more
an expertly
embarrassing
crafted masterpiece. 100% pure beef with
But
juicy,
what
beefy
kind of
goodness,
grade are we
ensuring
talking?
quality you trust and the taste you love. Yan ang
Not my dream
binabalik-balikan ko.
Let's clarify
Para sa
this.
akin,
Shorten
the
that.
best pa rin.
And
Choose
boom!
Blue. Pure Foods corned beef.
We have
the
pretty
pure
high standards. Am I right?
We work with global companies in setting up their offices in the Philippines. And one of the common questions we get is what's the difference between a broker partner and a channel partner? A broker partner is for licensed individuals or brokerage companies, while
Orlando
a channel
Bottom, welcome to the
partner
show.
is
Thank you
for
so much.
companies that are
Where do
expanding their
bad
services
inner
through
voices
our
come from?
solutions. I'm so
Well,
sorry, I really got to take
the way I
this
like to think
call.
about it is
but
that
if you
an
want to
inner
learn
voice
more or
is
simply
always
continue the
an outer
conversation,
voice that got
reach out to us at
internalized.
partners
You know,
at
we're very
KMC.Solutions.
porous people.
Once again, I'm
The
Trisha
way in
Paulsa,
which
Director for
we're
Global
spoken to
Partnerships, and
becomes
I'll
the way
speak
in
to you
which
soon.
we speak to
Hello?
ourselves. I mean, if that sounds too weird, think of language, right? All of us arrive in the world not speaking any language, and by the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, we'll have learned a lot of words. But the fascinating thing about human beings is we don't know we're learning. So we can be doing other stuff, like, you know, doing handstands in the garden or drawing buttercups in the kitchen, and we're becoming expert grammarians. Hundreds of words are entering our minds. Complex grammatical constructions are entering our minds. Now, the way I like to think about it is that language analogy holds true for emotional life as well. So at the same time as we're learning a language of, you know, words and declensions, we're also learning a language of emotions. We're learning things like, what's a man like? What's a woman like? What happens if you give something to someone? What happens if you're vulnerable? What happens if you want to play? What happens if you say no? What happens if you say yes? All of these are the syntax. They comprise the syntax of our emotional lives. And it's an invisible syntax, just as our grammatical syntax is invisible. But it's there, and it will operate throughout our lives, and it will be immensely hard to change. I mean, you know what it's like if you grew up speaking English and then you want to learn a foreign language. You suddenly want to learn Italian. Well, good luck to you. You're going to be learning a long time. It's not impossible, can be done, but I think it's helpful to think of how hard it is, because sometimes people get very impatient in their attempts to change things about themselves. They go things like, you know, I want to change how I relate to people in relationships, say. And I've read a book, and I've been to 3 therapy sessions, and I'm really annoyed. Nothing works. You want to go, okay, imagine this was Italian. So you've looked at a book on Italian, you've taken 3 classes, and you don't speak fluent Italian, and you're complaining. So we do need some modesty here, just in order to be properly ambitious. I mean, as you know, the root cause of sort of early despair and early retirement from things is a false picture of what success demands in an area. And I think in the area of emotional improvement or maturation, we sometimes let ourselves down by thinking it's going to have an ease which it won't have.
It's interesting thinking about how language shapes our experience of emotions and our experience of the world, that German, for instance, has a colorful number of ways to describe certain emotions that you can't in other. You say, well, does the fact that we have the word for it almost unlock that emotion in a way? It allows us to do self-investigation.
Yes, I think, philosophers watching this, philosophers of language may have arguments pro and it's a big thing, but I definitely feel that the more words we have, the more we can attend to what we feel, and in some cases, the more we can feel. I remember learning the word anxiety when I was a teenager, and thinking, wow, that's a really useful word. Probably nowadays people learn anxiety a lot earlier, but in those days, it was a fascinating word to learn. And the more one's vocabulary stretches, the more you're able to put a flag in bits of your psyche that are perhaps painful. And I think if you think about why people go to psychotherapy, or even frankly what motivates a lot of friendship, it's somebody else helps to give you a vocabulary for bits of your mind and bits of your experience that have not till now that have eluded definition. And that definition is not merely it's not merely a fancy thing, it's a life-saving thing, because the more you can define, the easier life gets. Freud speculated that the origins of language lie in an ability to bear frustration, so that if a child can think, I'm currently frustrated, but mummy's coming back, and and the person's got those words, then that can help you to bear missing and also bear excitement, or all sorts of things. Things can become more bearable the more you can put them into language. And I think adults know this when we go about journaling, right? Why is it so helpful to journal? Because we know it is. All research shows that it is. What is it about translating a feeling into a word for that feeling that's helpful? And I think it tames, it contains, and it narrows the spread of difficult emotions.
It's very ephemeral, right? You've got these thoughts up here moving around, floating about, and then they have to be concretized. And you're right, it almost feels like it squeezes it through an aperture of some kind. You say, okay, this is what I meant by that. It's not this notion.
Yeah.
It's not this sort of ambient sound. It's somebody shouted a noise in the next room.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, it's here. Yeah. I can touch it. You can see it.
Yeah.
Moving around,
Yeah, that's right. And think of relationships, couples. The more their vocabulary for what they're going through increases, the more they can say, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling, when you do that, I feel this, etc. And the enemy, the sort of normal word is people say communication, but it's really language. It's putting language to feelings. And so much goes wrong in life because we're unable to do it. It starts with ourselves. We can't do it with ourselves. There's a useful phrase that psychotherapists use, talk about disassociation. It's a fascinating concept. What would it mean to disassociate? And the way it's understood sort of therapeutically is that you could feel an emotion, it's so difficult, tricky in some way, and you then stop feeling it. You disassociate from the feeling that's in you. It's still in you, but you're no longer registering it. Tricky. And the argument is always the more you can associate and the less you can disassociate, the better off you will be. But look, there are many bits of life that are unbearable to us. Let's remember this. There's a wonderful quote in Middlemarch, George Eliot, big fat 19th century novel, where she says, if we could properly register the full sounds of life, we would lose our minds from the full richness of existence. In other words, if you were sensitive to everything that's around you, you would sort of go mad. And I think if we think about what madness is, so-called, what colloquially called madness, if you think of people with severe mental illness, very often what has happened is that their ability to sequence thoughts has gone. Everything is coming at them, and they can't grade thoughts. They can't say, this thought must go away now. So they'll go, I made a mistake 15 years ago. And if you're balanced, you'll go, well, that was 15 years ago, and it's not a problem. We don't have to have it pressing down. If your reason is buckling, often everything that is alarming comes at you at once. Everything that is difficult at once. And so in a way, I'm sticking up for the ability sometimes to take distance from our feelings. So, I started off by going, it's really important to know what you're feeling. But let's also remember, at points, the ability not to feel the full force of everything also belongs to health. So it's a double-edged sword there.
With AI-powered transaction categorization, you can get a clear view of your cash flow and ensure your books are done accurately, saving you valuable time. Simplify your expense tracking with Intuit QuickBooks.
The full force of everything also belongs to health. So it's a double-edged sword there.
With AI-powered transaction categorization, you can get a clear view of your cash flow and ensure your books are done accurately, saving you valuable time. Simplify your expense tracking with Intuit QuickBooks.
What's your advice for how people can heal a negative inner voice? We've got this odd artifact that we've carried with us, this inheritance of our life, but kind of almost some previous life of ours.
Yeah.
Where should people begin if they want to have a more friendly inner voice?
Such a good question. I'd say you have to start by finding the inner voice, because it doesn't announce itself as an inner voice. So how are we going to, we're not talking here about literally hearing voices. Some people do, but we're not talking about that here. What we're talking about is a way of speaking to yourself, or a way of conducting yourself in your own mind that owes more to something from outside than from inside, and that is more negative, or we can put it this way, unfair to you and your chances, your hopes, etc. So how do we detect this is even going on? Because I don't think it's necessarily obvious. Here, I think that it's quite helpful to get people to do what are called sentence completion exercises, where you start off with a stub sentence, and then you have an ellipsis, ... So men are, women are, life is, I am, I want, if ... because ... And you say to people, right, here's a list of these things, without thinking too much. Very important prompt. Without thinking too much, just say the first thing comes into your head. Men are, women are, life is, I am, etc. Or even beginnings of stories, story completion exercises. When I meet someone that I ... just finish that sentence. And what people will come out with is fascinating. They'll go, men are cruel. Wow, men are cruel, are they? A person might even be surprised that they've said that. Then you say, okay, where's that come from? What led you to believe that? And often what you'll find is a story that owes more to something outside than something inside. When I meet someone, what will happen is ... they'll be very friendly to me, then they'll turn against me. Wow. Where did that come from? It's going to be a specific story in the past that is being carried forward.
Isn't it interesting that we're talking about maybe the thing people identify with most, the texture of their own experience, the landscape of their inner mind, but you're then saying, well, this may not fully be self-generated. This might be something which you've absorbed from the past, from society, from norms, from cultures, from the way that you've compensated for past traumas, etc. Or just habits. But it brings up an interesting question, which is, okay, so who are you? Where are you in this? Are you that voice? In some ways you are, because you're inexorably linked to all of the experiences you've had. But then we have this sort of transcendent us, which is better. It's the better us. If only I could. It's the me without the compensation, the trauma, the etc.
Such a good question. We're not... There's sometimes this idea of, the real me that is separate from everybody else. We are penetrated by society. Think of how we're speaking, right? We're using words as we speak to one another. Every one of those words is both spoken by us and was made by other people, long before we were even a rumor in anyone's mind, right? We are penetrated by society. Every one of the words that I am using is the result of generations and generations of people who've used those words, refined their meaning, etc., and then given them to me. So that's literally the language. We're permeated by social language. Even our biology, as we know, our gut bacteria is, both us and not us. So the neat, Chris, Alain, we are these sort of, entities where you can put a strict circle around. Now we're interpenetrated by society, biology, history, etc. So then the question comes, well, is there anything, that's more me, less me? And I think here, absolutely. And I think that one of the journeys, life's full of journeys. One of the journeys that I think we all are on is to start to separate out a little bit. Well, I can understand there's a lot in me that was just put there by society, by the context in which I was born. Which of those bits do I want to keep or focus on, and which of those bits do not fully represent, my values, my considered choices, etc. And this is where life gets interesting, because people start to say things like, well, where I come from, normal meant ... But the more I think about it, the more I'm reflecting on who I really am, the more I want to ditch that and that and that. It's as a form of editing process.
Self-authorship.
Absolutely. And, I think that the more mature someone is, I'll use that word because you used others. The more mature someone is, the more what they do, what they think, the values they hold, owe more to their own work, their own sifting, their own editing, than it does to the context that they were born into. I think, it's interesting, if you look at the arc of a life, right? A very small child is often remarkably authentic, which is why we adults, in small doses at least, have such great time with little ones, because they come out with stuff and you think, oh my God, I can't believe they've just said that thing. They've just said that Granny's nose is too big, or that this restaurant's boring, or this very expensive thing is a load of rubbish, etc. They'll come out with stuff that is non-normative. And that's very interesting because as an adult, you recognize a kind of, you recognize your own spontaneity that's been lost normally. So it's kind of bittersweet. You think, oh, you don't want exactly the child's version of it, because that would lead you into trouble, but you want an adult version, and it's very hard to get. And probably the high watermark of the opposite is when you're 14 and a half and you're at school and your most fervent wish is to be like everybody else. You want your parents to be like everybody else. You want your name to be like everybody else. You want your appearance, your haircut, etc. You cannot bear difference. And then slowly, you individuate, and that's a very exciting journey, seeing.
I used to say, if I hear AI one more time, I'm gonna lose it. But Monday.com is super easy to use and knows how to do AI right. My team quit going through endless documents ourselves. Monday Sidekick handles that now, pulling the crucial info and then prioritizing based on whatever we need. So stuff that takes my team hours is now done before they even open their laptop. I use it for insights and action suggestions constantly, especially on those back-to-back meeting days. All these AI features are built directly into Monday.com and actually use our real data. With Monday.com, AI isn't some over-promising future. It's here. It just works. Like, actually saves us time and resources kind of work.
Monday Sidekick, AI you'll love to use. Start a free trial today at Monday.com.
Filipinos, you're paying too much to get paid from overseas. Payday is smarter with a Wise. It's the account to get paid from around the world. Get a Wise US account without leaving the Philippines and stop losing money with traditional wire transfers. You work internationally, your payday should too. Be smart, get Wise. Filipinos, you're paying too much to get paid from overseas. Payday is smarter with a Wise. It's the account to get.
I don't think anyone individuates in all areas. So I think the first choice is, what are the areas that matter a lot to you? I'm interested in individuation, but when it comes to clothes, you might have noticed, I kind of, it's a really interesting area, but I'm just leaving that one for another time. I'm just not engaging with that. Similarly, food, fascinating area. Very interesting. Yeah, not quite on my radar yet, but other areas, what I'm reading, very opinionated, very individual. So I don't think all of us can do it in all areas, but we choose, and that's also part of what makes someone an individual.
I love the idea of children being unencumbered by sort of expectation in that way. And trying to find the balance between what would the mature childlike version of ourselves do or say in this moment, where we found ourselves too swayed by the opinions of others, by expectations, by societal norms, etc.
Do you remember that story of Picasso, who was going around an art school, like little kids were doing art, and some kid was sort of scrawling, mummy, whatever, and this kid was 7, and Picasso said famously, when I was his age, I was painting like Raphael, one of the great Renaissance artists, and it was sort of true. I mean, young Picasso, and then he went, and it's taken me all my life to remember how to paint like this.
Unreal.
Now, he didn't, an adult painting like a child is not a child painting like a child. It's something different, which is why when people go, oh, a child could have done that. Well, when a child does it, it's one thing, and when an adult does it, it's another thing, and I think it's quite different. And I think that's why, when you look at Picasso, and there are lots of artists and lots of figures you could sort of draw that analogy with, but, when you're looking at a painting that Picasso did when he was 90, at the end of his life, and it's got elements of stuff that a child might do, but it's gone through, that this guy has been doing so much other stuff, so he's got deeper reasons.
Did you ever read His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman?
No.
Okay, trilogy of children's books, ostensibly, I guess. This was my favorite series when I was a kid, and in it, the protagonist, Lyra, finds this truth teller. It's called an alethiometer. And for some reason, this particular device, it takes an entire lifetime of study to be able to read it. And as a child, she can do it immediately. So it's this beautiful arc, and it's the first time I ever thought about it. And Pullman takes you through unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence to conscious incompetence to conscious competence.
Lovely.
And one of the final scenes of the entire book, at the very, very end, she goes back to the nunnery where she was being raised 5 years ago, before the story begins. And she's lost the ability to read it. She hits puberty, and it's kind of the...
Let's find out what scribe means to our employees. I'm working 95% faster so I can create 7...
I would bite.
You'd bite, you said?
I would bite other kids.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would feel threatened, and I would bite them, usually on the forearm or upper arm where it's kind of fleshy and doughy. I would say, oh, there's some babka, and then bam, and I'd hit him. Top 2 teeth, bottom teeth, and I was a biter. I'm 39 years old. I almost never bite people now. I would bite.
You'd bite, you said?
I would bite other kids.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would feel threatened, and I would bite them, usually on the forearm or upper.
You have to have a meaning in life that sustains you. Life is a serious business. You're all in. It's a fatal business, right? Everyone's in it up to their neck. And you need a meaning that can sustain you through that. And that's to be found in responsibility. We all know this, that it's better to live courageously than cowardly. Everyone knows that. That's what you teach people that you love. You wake up in the morning, your consciousness reemerges on the stage of existence. And what you're confronted by is the potential of the day. You see the day as a set of possible pathways. You could do this, you could do that, you could not do this, you could not do that. And your conscience speaks to you too, almost immediately, I would say, upon awakening. Here's something I need to do today to keep things in order. Here's something I need not to do today to keep things in order. Here's my set of obligations that I need to undertake so that when I go to sleep tonight, I can sleep with a clear conscience and things are better than they might have otherwise been. And so what you see in front of you is the potential of the world. And to me, you see, that's akin to the potential that God confronted in Genesis at the beginning of time. That's the meaning of that story, is that there's a potential that is confronted by an attitude. And the attitude that is appropriate in relationship to that confrontation is the attitude of the Logos. And the Logos is something like courage. That's one of its primary attributes, and truth. That's the other. Now there's more, but I would say if you had to boil it down to two, it would be courage and truth. And the idea there is that if you confront the potential that's in front of you with truth and courage, that what you do is you take what could be and you transform it into what is. And you do that, and you transform it into what is that's good. And then you have that. That is you. That's your soul. That's the thing that, as Genesis points out, that gives you that affinity with God. The fact that you're made in the image of God is the fact that you have that capability, and that capability to take that potential and to make the world out of it is also dependent on your ethical choices. And everyone knows that, right? Even if we can't articulate it, you know perfectly well that you can wake up in a miserable mood, bitter and unhappy, and do 25 things that day to make your life more like hell than it was, and to share that delight with the people around you. Everyone understands that. And you know as well that you can decide to face things courageously and truthfully, and you can make tomorrow's morning somewhat better than today's morning was by setting the world in order. You can't be doing that because you want to be a good person in some sense. And you can't be doing that because you want to be seen as being a good person. That's not the right attitude. You have to be doing it because it's the transcendently right thing to do. It's the thing that you do if you aim at the highest possible ideal. And and that is laid out in the Sermon on the Mount, is that you should aim at the highest possible ideal, and then that you should concentrate on the day. And it's deadly serious psychological advice. Aim high. Lift your eyes above the horizon, right? Lift your eyes to the stars that beckon above. Try to set things right and to orient your life. And there has to be a relationship with the transcendent that allows you to do that properly, or it becomes an exercise in ego, and then it doesn't work. You have to have a meaning in life that sustains you. Life is a serious business. You're all in. It's a fatal business, right? Everyone's in it up to their neck, and it's dreadful in some sense. And you need a meaning that can sustain you through that, and that's to be found in responsibility. And that's something that we have not communicated, I don't think, well to ourselves, but we certainly haven't communicated it to young people. It's like, well, you're lost. There's reasons that you could be lost, and they're real. God only knows what terrible things happen to you in your life. It's like, how are you going to get out of that? Well, not by pursuing impulsive happiness. That is not going to work. Not by thinking in the short term. Not by thinking in a narrowly selfish manner either, but by taking on the heaviest load of responsibility that you can conceptualize and bear. That will do it. It'll do it for you. It'll give you a reason to wake up in the morning. It'll give you a balm for your conscience when you wake up at night and ask yourself what you're doing with your life. It'll make you a credit to yourself and to your family, and it'll make you a boon to your community. And more than that, there's more than that. It's said in Genesis that every person is made in the image of God. And there's an idea in Genesis that God is that which confronts the chaos of potential with truth and courage. That's the Logos. And if we're made in the image of God, that's us. That's what we do, is we confront the potential of chaos, the future, the unformed future. We confront that consciously, and we decide with every ethical choice we make what kind of world we're going to bring into being. We transform that potential into actuality. And we do that as a consequence of our ethical decisions. And so it's not only a matter of putting yourself together and putting your family together, putting your community together. It's a matter of bringing the world in its proper shape into being. And I truly believe that that's the case. And I believe that we all believe that. Like, we hold ourselves responsible. You know that if you've made a mistake with your family, you know, because you were selfish or narrow-minded or blind in some manner, that you regard yourself as culpable. You could have done otherwise. And now you've brought something into the world that should not be there. And it's on you. We hold ourselves responsible in that manner. And so what that indicates to me is that in a deep sense, we believe that we are the agents that transform the potential of being into reality. And that is a divine, if anything, links us with divinity. It's our capability to transform what is not yet into what is. And the other thing that happens, and I'll stop with this in Genesis, and this is so interesting, it's so fascinating, is that as God conducts himself through this enterprise of the transformation of potential into actuality, he stops repeatedly and says, and it was good. And that's a mystery. Why is it good? And the answer is something like, well, if you conduct yourself with the courage that enables you to accept your vulnerability, which is no trivial matter, and if you're truthful, then what you bring out of potential is what's good. And that sets the world right. And that's up to us. And to me, that's the great story of the West. That's why we regard ourselves as sovereign individuals of value. That's what we are. And we need to know that, to take ourselves seriously and to act properly in the world.
You're actually strong enough to do that, you just don't know it. And you won't find out till you do it. You can't find out till you do it. But if you did it, you'd find out that it was true. It's a massive risk. It's the ultimate in risks, right? You have to be willing to lose your life in order to find it. It's like, exactly right. I mean, Buddha finds his enlightenment under a tree. It's not fluke that that's the case. That's his natural environment. And he's sitting in the lotus here. The lotus opens up. It's this thing that springs up from the depths. And he sits there illuminated the same way. He's got a halo that's the sun that stands for higher consciousness. And he's transcended by accepting the fact that life is suffering. He's transcended the limitations that are part of mortality. This is the thing that this idea is what enables people to transcend their suffering. And Buddha said, well, don't be too attached to things. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean deny the world. It might mean deny the world if you're too in love with the material, like with material well-being, let's say, then your pathway to transcendence and meaning might be to abandon that because it's constraining you. It's making you less than you could be. But the fundamental lesson, the more fundamental lesson that's underneath that is don't let what you are stop you from being what you could be. Right. And so then the question is, well, what do you identify with? Do you identify with what you are? Then you're a tyrant. Do you identify with chaos? Because that's the opposite of order, say. Then you're nihilistic. Well, you don't identify with either of those. You know that they're both necessary. You know that you have to live with both of them, but you identify with the capacity to continually transcend what you are. And then you seek out error. That's what humility is. It's like, I'm error-ridden. It's like, so I want to put myself in a situation where I can discover one of my errors, hopefully not in a way that's going to knock me completely out of the game, right? I want to seek out a challenge. I want to find out where my limits are. I want to find out where there's not enough of me yet. And I want to do that in a way that's engaging because, you know, you can wear yourself out fighting dragons, obviously. You can exhaust yourself completely, and that's not helpful. You know, one of the things I learned, for example, when I was coaching lawyers, these were people who had very high-end careers, and so they had an infinite workload. No matter how much they worked, flat out, there was always way more work that they should do. It's a very difficult thing to learn to manage. And so they were exhausting themselves, and I said, well, you know, you have to work less per day. It's like, well, no, that's not happening. I can't do that. And so what I learned over time was, okay, so this is what you have to do. Every 3 months, you have to block off 4 days and go have a vacation. And you have to plan that in advance so it's in your calendar so that your secretary doesn't book your time. And then you need that because you have to recuperate enough so that you can work as hard as you're going to work. And of course, they were nervous about that. And I said, well, look, we can calibrate this. Let's keep track of your billable hours over the next year and see if they increase or decrease. Because I bet you if you take more time off, you'll actually have more billable hours. You'll actually have your cake and eat it too. You'll get to have a vacation and you'll be more productive. And that inevitably, that was what happened. And so that's a matter of calibrating the game properly, right? You want to play a game that you can play today, but also one that you can play next week and next month. We're not talking about, you know, your career this week. We're talking about you having a career that lasts 30 years, that doesn't kill you, that doesn't make you hate yourself or the job, that doesn't make you bitter, that doesn't wear you to a frazzle. So it has to be optimized. And so I think that you can, in fact, decide to take on the load that's optimally meaningful if you want, and then you get to have your cake and eat it too. You're on the pathway to continual incremental improvement. You only have to burn off a feather at a time instead of having the whole bloody thing burst into flames. But it's a constant source of renewal. And there's an idea that to be renewed, you have to drink the water of life, right? That's an old mythological idea. And what's the water? The water of life, chaos is water. Water is chaos. Water is what washes away too much order. And to stay continually, let's say, refreshed by the water of life is to take on exactly the right amount of chaos to make sure that your garden is properly nourished. And I think meaning is actually the marker of that. I'll tell you what it is that you need to do to be successful. Some of these things aren't so malleable, but others are things that you can work on. Well, IQ, well, that's a rough one because there's no evidence, as far as I can tell, that you can do a damn thing about your IQ. I've reviewed that literature like 6 times in the last 15 years because I keep hoping that someone will crack the problem, but it's always the same answer. It's like you do brain training games, you get better at the game, a lot better at that game. You get slightly better at similar games, but distal games that are still heavily cognitively loaded doesn't affect your performance at all. Zero, none. So the issue of how to raise IQ, man, that's a killer. No one knows how to do it. I can tell you how to stop your IQ from decreasing as you get older. That's not so bad because it does that. Fluid IQ decreases from the time you're 20 and pretty rapidly. It's physical health is the best preventative. So exercise, physical exercise. Weirdly enough, you think, well, why? Well, your brain uses oxygen like mad, right? And it needs to be kept clean and well oxygenated. And physical exercise, both like weightlifting, so anaerobic and aerobic exercise, both seem to be very, very effective at staving off cognitive declines across the lifespan. So that's a really useful thing to know because that's the only thing we know that does that. So then the next best predictor of lifetime success is conscientiousness. And of the 2 aspects of conscientiousness, say orderliness and industriousness, the better predictor is industriousness. So the question is, well, what can you do about your industriousness? And the answer to that is, well, that's kind of rough too, because there's a strong genetic component. But you can work on micro habits with regards to your conscientiousness. And I think the best thing you can do with regards to your conscientiousness is to set up some aims for yourself, goals that you actually value. And so the questions are something like, well, all right, you're going to have to put some effort into your life, and you need to be motivated to do that. And so what are the potential sources of motivation? Well, you could think about them in the big 5 manner. You know, if you're extroverted, you want friends. If you're agreeable, you want an intimate relationship. If you're disagreeable, you want to win competitions. If you're open, you want to engage in creative activity. If you're high in neuroticism, you want security. Okay, so those are all sources of potential motivation that you could draw on, that you could tailor to your own personality. But then there are dimensions that you want to consider your life across. And so we ask people about, well, you know, if you could have your life the way you wanted it in 3 to 5 years, if you were taking care of yourself properly, what would you want from your friendships? What would you want from your intimate relationship? How would you like to structure your family? What do you want for your career? How are you going to use your time outside of your job? And how are you going to regulate your mental and physical health, and maybe also your drug and alcohol use? Because that's a good place to auger down, because alcoholism, for example, wipes out 5 to 10% of people. So you want to keep that under control. And then maybe you develop a vision of what you would like your life to be. Then you break down the goal into micro processes that you could implement. The micro processes become rewarding in relation to their causal association with the goal. And that tangles in your incentive reward system, the dopaminergic incentive reward system. And that's the thing that keeps you moving forward. And the way it works is that it produces positive emotion when it can see you moving towards a valued goal. Okay, well, what's the implication of that? Better have a valued goal, because otherwise you can't get any positive motivation working out. And so the more valuable the goal, in principle, the more the micro processes associated with that goal start to take on a positive charge. And so what that means is, well, you get up in the morning and you're excited about the day, you're ready to go. And so as far as I can tell, what you do is you specify your long-term ideal. Maybe you also specify a place you want to stay the hell away from so that you're terrified to fail as well as excited about succeeding, because that's also useful. You specify your goal. You do that in some sense as a unique individual. You want to specify goals that make you say, oh, if that could happen as a consequence of my efforts, it would clearly be worthwhile. Because the question always is, why do something? Because doing nothing is easy. You just sit there and you don't do anything. That's real easy. The question is, why would you ever do anything? And the answer to that has to be because you've determined by some means that it's worthwhile. And then the next question might be, well, where should you look for worthwhile things? And one would be, well, you could consult your own temperament. And the other would be, well, you kind of look at what it is that people accrue that's valuable across the lifespan. So you do a structural analysis of the subcomponents of human existence, and already did that. You need a family, you need friends. Like, you don't need to have all these things, but you better have most of them. Family, friends, career, educational goals, plans for, time outside of work, attention to your mental and physical health, etc. That's what life is about. And if you don't have any of those things, well, then all you've got left is misery and suffering. So that's a bad deal for you. But once you set up that goal structure, let's say, and that's really, in many ways, that's what you should be doing at university. That's exactly what you should be doing, is trying to figure out who it is that you're trying to be, right? You aim at that. And then you use everything you learn as a means of building that person that you want to be. And I really mean want to be. I don't mean should be, even those things are going to overlap. And it's important to distinguish between those, and this is back down to the micro-routine analysis. So as I was saying, well, you're going to try to make yourself more industrious. Okay, number one, specify your damn goals, because how are you going to hit something if you don't know what it is? That isn't going to happen. And often people won't specify their goals too, because they don't like to specify conditions for failure. So if you keep yourself all vague and foggy, which is real easy, because that's just a matter of not doing as well, then you don't know when you fail. And people might say, well, I really don't want to know when I fail because that's painful. So I'll keep myself blind about when I fail. That's fine, except you'll fail all the time then. You just won't know it until you've failed so badly that you're done. And that can easily happen by the time you're 40. So I would recommend that you don't let that happen. So that's willful blindness, right? You could have known, but you chose not to. Okay, so once you get your goal structure set up, you think, okay, if I could have this life, looks like that might be worth living, despite the fact that it's going to be, anxiety provoking and threatening, and there's going to be some suffering and loss involved and all of that. Obviously, the goal is to have a vision for your life such that, all things considered, that justifies your effort. So then what do? Then you turn down to the micro routines. It's like, okay, well, this is what I'm aiming for. How does that instantiate itself day to day, week to week, month to month? And that's where something like a schedule can be unbelievably useful. It's like, make a damn schedule and stick to it. Okay, so what's the rule with the schedule? It's not a bloody prison. That's the first thing that people do wrong. They say, well, I don't like to follow a schedule. Well, what kind of schedule are you setting up? Well, I have to do this, then I have to do this, then I have to do this. And then I just go play video games, because who wants to do all these things that I have to do? It's like, wrong. Set the damn schedule up so that you have the day you want. That's the trick. It's like, okay, I've got tomorrow. If I was going to set it up so it was the best possible day I could have, practically speaking, what would it look like? Well, then you schedule that. And obviously there's a bit of responsibility that's going to go along with that, because if you have any sense, one of the things that you're going to insist upon is that at the end of the day, you're not in worse shape than you were at the beginning of the day, right? Because that's a stupid day. If you have a bunch of those in a row, you dig yourself a hole and then you bury yourself in it. It's like, sorry, that's just not a good strategy. It's a bad strategy. So maybe 20% of your day has to be responsibility and obligation, or maybe it's more than that, depending on how far behind you are. But even that, you can ask yourself, okay, well, I've got these responsibilities. I have to schedule the damn things in. What's the right ratio of responsibility to reward? And you can ask yourself that, just like you'd negotiate with someone who is working for you. It's like, okay, you got to work tomorrow. Okay, so I want you to work tomorrow. And you might say, okay, well, what are you going to do for me that makes it likely that I'll work for you? Well, you could ask yourself that, you know. Maybe you do an hour of responsibility and then you play a video game for 15 minutes. I don't know, whatever turns your crank, man. But you have to negotiate with yourself and not tyrannize yourself. Like you're negotiating with someone that you care for, that you would like to be productive and have a good life. And that's how you make the schedule. And then you look at the day and you think, well, if I had that day, that'd be good. Great. You know, and you're useless and horrible, so you'll probably only hit it with about 70% accuracy, but that beats the hell out of 0, right? And if you hit it even with 50% accuracy, another rule is, well, aim for 51% the next week, or 50.5% for God's sake, or because you're going to hit that position where things start to loop back positively and spiral you upward. So that's one way that you can work on your conscientiousness, is plan a life you'd like to have. And you do that partly by referring to social norms. That's more or less rescuing your father from the belly of the whale. But the other way you do that is by having a little conversation with yourself, as if you don't really know who you are, because you know what you're like. You won't do what you're told. You won't do what you tell yourself to do. You must have noticed that. It's like you're a bad employee and a worse boss. And both of those work, you know, for you. You don't know what you want to do, and then when you tell yourself what to do, you don't do it anyways. You should fire yourself and find someone else to beat. But you know, my point is that you have to understand that you're not your own servant, so to speak. You're someone that you have to negotiate with, and you're someone that you want to present the opportunity of having a good life to. And that's hard for people because they don't like themselves very much. So, you know, they're always like cracking the whip and then procrastinating, and cracking the whip and then procrastinating. And it's like, God, it's so boring and such a pathetic way of spending your time. And you know what that's like because you probably waste like 6 hours a day. And I think we did an economic calculation about that a while back, right? Your time's probably worth $50 an hour, something like that. I mean, you're not getting paid that now, but you're young. And so this is investment time. And what you do now is going to multiply its effects in the future. So let's say it's $50 an hour, which is perfectly reasonable. So if you waste 6 hours a day, and you are, then you're wasting about $2,000 a week, or about $100,000 a year. So like, go ahead, but that's what it's costing you every hour. And you need to know what your damn time is worth. So let's say it's not $50, it's 30, whatever. Maybe it's 100, it's somewhere in that range. One of the things you should be asking yourself is, when you spend an hour, was that, well, would have I paid someone $50 to have had that hour? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, maybe you should do something else with your time. And it depends on whether or not you think that your time's worthwhile. But the funny thing about not assuming that is, if you assume your time isn't worthwhile, what happens is you don't just sit around sort of randomly in a state of responsibility-less bliss. What you do is you suffer existentially. And so that seems like a stupid solution. Information that's being provided to you from your body, sort of bottom up, to determine when you were being inauthentic or non-congruent. And I've thought about this for a long time and tried to sort it out in a practical manner. And what I've concluded is this. You can try this for a couple of weeks. It's an extremely interesting exercise. So you sort of have to detach yourself from your thoughts and what you say. So you got to assume, you start by assuming that what you say and what you think is not necessarily you. And of course, that's just the case, because a lot of what you think, in fact, most of what you think and most of what you say are the opinions of other people. They're things you've read or things people have told you. And, you know, that's a benefit in some ways, because you get all those thoughts that other people have spent a long time formulating, but it's a disadvantage in that it's not exactly you. Okay, so you detach yourself from that. You're no longer your thoughts or the things that you say, or maybe you're no longer all of them. And now what you're going to try to find out is which of your thoughts and things that you say are you. And maybe so you can not utilize the rest, or maybe so that you can correct the rest, that they're not representative of yourself as an integrated being. They don't take everything into account.
Like a river,
my sense is that you can tell when you're saying something that's not authentic.
You realize endurance isn't just
by
about surviving
feeling
harsh
out
conditions.
whether or not it makes
it's
you
about
weak
showing
or
up
strong.
with the same heart.
Now, you know, sometimes
they're
when
teaching
you're
you.
conversing with people, you can say something that embarrasses yourself. Now, Nietzsche said, for example, everyone has perjured themselves at least once in the attempt to maintain their good name. Something like that. It's not an exact quote, but I've got the gist of it right. So maybe you're saying things to impress someone, or you're saying things to remain part of your political group or your social group or whatever, or maybe you have attributes, personal attributes that might be positive that you're ashamed of, and so you're not going to speak about them. So there's a falseness about your self-representation. Watch for 2 weeks and see. Make a rule that if you start to say something and it makes you feel weak, what it means is that I can feel things coming apart sort of in my midsection, so I think it's an autonomic phenomena. And the subjective sense is of falsehood. It's like I've just stepped off the solid ground and onto something that doesn't support me well, and it feels like a self-betrayal. So that's existential inauthenticity. You can feel it right away. And then the rule is, shut up if that happens. Stop talking. And then feel around and see if you can find some words that you can say in that situation that don't produce that sensation. You see this played out in different forms of drama, so it's not all that obvious why a cliche is a bad thing, but a cliche is a bad thing in the same way that being possessed by the dead is a bad thing. It's like a cliche isn't you. It's something else. It's like the crowd. It's like the other. It's not living. It has nothing to do with this.
Merienda with... Ikaw ulit!
In the same way that being possessed by the dead is a bad thing. It's like the crowd. It's like the other.
Play for free now.
Assuming you want to get better, there's usually something you can figure out that would constitute a step towards some sort of concrete goal. And my presumption, it's a behavioral presumption fundamentally, is that small accruing gains that repeat are unbelievably powerful. You can tyrannize yourself into doing things, but I wouldn't recommend it. What I would recommend instead is that you ask yourself what you're willing to do. It's a really effective technique. It's like a meditative technique. So, for example, you can get up in the morning and you can think, well, you know, I'd like to have a good day today, so I'd like to go to bed tonight without feeling guilty because I, didn't do some things I said I was going to do, and I'd like to have kind of an interesting day. So you got to fulfill my responsibilities, and I want to, enjoy the day. Then you can ask yourself, well, what would I have to do in order for that to happen that I would do? And the probability, if you practice this for 3 or 4 days, is your brain will just tell you. It'll say, well, there's that piece of homework that you haven't done for like 3 weeks. You should knock that sucker off because it would only take you 10 minutes, and you've been avoiding it and torturing yourself to death for 72 hours straight. And say, well, let's figure out what your aims are. You got to have some aims, whatever they are. And they might say, well, I'm so depressed I don't have any aims. And then I say, well, pick the least objectionable of the aims and act it out for a while and see what happens. Because sometimes your emotional systems are so fouled up that you have to pretend. You have to act the thing out before you can start to believe it. Life can be meaningful enough to justify its suffering. I thought, God, that's such a good idea. Because it's not optimistic exactly. Some people will tell you, well, you can be happy. It's like, those people are idiots. I'm telling you, they're idiots. There's going to be things that come along that flatten you so hard you won't believe it. And you're not happy then. And so if life is to be happy, well, in those situations, what are you doing? Why even live? But life isn't to be happy. If you're happy, you're bloody fortunate, and you should enjoy it. You should, because it's the grace of God, so to speak. People know when they're doing something meaningful. They can tell. So why the hell don't they do meaningful things all the time? It seems obvious. You could do it. I mean, it's hard, you know, because other people want you to do other things, and it's a struggle, but everything's a struggle. Oh, I get it. I see why. It took me about 10 years to figure this out. People have a choice. Choice number one, nothing you do means anything. Well, that's kind of a drag, right? It's meaninglessness of life and all that, existential angst. You know, that's kind of a pain. But the upside of nothing that you do is meaningful is you don't have to do anything. You've got no responsibility. Now, you have to suffer because things are meaningless, but that's a small price to pay. The alternative is everything you do matters. Really. If you make a mistake, it's a real mistake. If you betray someone, you tilt the world a little more sharply towards evil rather than good. It matters what you do. Well, if you buy that, then you can have a meaningful life. But there's no mucking around. It means responsibility. It means that the decisions you make are important. It means that when you do something wrong, it's wrong. Well, do you want that? I don't have any aims, and then I say, well, pick the least objectionable of the aims and act it out for a while and see what happens, because sometimes your emotional systems are so fouled up that you have to pretend, you have to act the thing out before you can start to believe it. Life can be meaningful enough to justify its suffering. I thought, God, that's such a good idea. Because it's not optimistic exactly. You know, some people will tell you, well, you can be happy. It's like, those people are idiots. I'm telling you, they're idiots. There's going to be things that come along that flatten you so hard you won't believe it. And you're not happy then. And so if life is to be happy, well, in those situations, what are you doing? Why even live? But life isn't to be happy. If you're happy, you're bloody fortunate, and you should enjoy it. You should, because it's the grace of God, so to speak. People know when they're doing something meaningful. They can tell. So why the hell don't they do meaningful things all the time? It seems obvious. You could do it. I mean, it's hard, you know, because other people want you to do other things, and it's a struggle, but everything's a struggle. Oh, I get it. I see why. It took me about 10 years to figure this out. People have a choice. Choice number one, nothing you do means anything. Well, that's kind of a drag, right? It's meaninglessness of life and all that, existential angst. You know, that's kind of a pain. But the upside of nothing that you do is meaningful is you don't have to do anything. You've got no responsibility. Now, you have to suffer because things are meaningless, but that's a small price to pay. The alternative is everything you do matters. Really. If you make a mistake, it's a real mistake. If you betray someone, you tilt the world a little more sharply towards evil rather than good. It matters what you do. Well, if you buy that, then you can have a meaningful life. But there's no mucking around. It means responsibility. It means that the decisions you make are important. It means that when you do something wrong, it's wrong. Well, do you want that? Look, last night, you know, I was at this talk I gave, and about 1,000 people came, and about 500 of them stayed afterwards, and most of them were young men, you know, and just one of them after the other comes up to me, and they shake my hand, and they say, look, I've been listening to what you've been saying for 6 months, and it's changed my life. It's like I was depressed, I was addicted to drugs, my relationships weren't working out, I was hopeless, I didn't have any goal. I started cleaning up my room and telling the truth and working hard on myself, and it's really working, and I just want to thank you for helping me. And I think, God, it's so sad that so many of these men, you know, they've not had an encouraging bloody word, a real encouraging word in their entire life. It just takes a little bit of encouragement and care so that they're willing to set themselves straight to some degree and start trying. It's just a catastrophe that's so rare in their lives.
Miss, yung right med nito?
Meron kaming iba.
Miss, basta right med. Doon ako sa kilala ko na at sa pinagkakatiwalaan ko.
Ito po, subukan ninyo.
Miss, basta right med. Tandaan, ipilit at hingin.
Basta right med! Dahil gusto namin na gumaling kayo.
What do you think of the skills that people should start to develop in their 20s in general to make them better human beings, more potentially open to success financially, relationship, health-wise? What are 2 or 3 things that everyone should focus on in their 20s?
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt to be in good physical condition, so we can walk through it. Stop drinking too much. How do you know if you're drinking too much? You regret what you do when you're drinking. It's interfering with other important goals. It's causing you financial distress. It's getting you in trouble with your friends or your family. It's getting you in trouble with the police. Okay, so stop abusing substances if you can, right? If you see that they're hurting you. And alcohol is particularly pernicious in that regard. So, physical health. Are you in decent shape? Are you strong and coordinated? And if you're not, well, you'd be better if you were. You'd feel better, you'd be more effective, you'd live longer, you'd be less sick. And you really see that mount up. Like if someone's been in shape once in their life, they age way better. And it's also a really good way of maintaining your cognitive ability. Like, you know, you hear about those exercises that you can do online to make you smarter and keep your cognitive ability intact. Those don't work. There's no evidence that they work. People keep saying that they make you smarter or they maintain your cognitive function. Psychologists have studied that for 50 years, hoping that one of those things will work. Trying all sorts of creative tacks, they don't work. Exercise works. Cardiovascular and weightlifting, you start to decline in your fluid intelligence at about the age of 25. And it's a linear trend downhill, and it can accelerate as you get older. It's just like this, quite ugly. If you exercise, you stave that off. So that's really useful. Maintain your relationships and foster them. So when I look at successful people, they're really good at something. They're reliable, right? You can count on their word. They're generous, and they have a wide connection network, which becomes more and more valuable as you get older.
Yeah.
So it's one advantage that older people really have over younger people. They have a connection network, and a connection network is
huge.
Well, you could be connected to 1,000 well-connected people. Okay, that means you are connected to the entire world. Right, it's unbelievably valuable. And that's one of the things that's so absolutely remarkable about the situation that I'm in right now. As far as one of the great benefits is I can contact pretty much anybody and they'll talk to me. It's like, really? That's so cool. I'm interested in infrastructure for reasons I won't get into, but I'm interested in infrastructure development. I think it's a good method of wealth transfer. It's a good solution to the problem of inequality and employment. I reached out to a leading expert on infrastructure last week, see if he'd talk to me. I thought, I don't know anything about infrastructure except that it's worn to a frazzle and we should do something about it. You know, he agreed to talk. Having a connection network is of inestimable value.
It's huge.
Reliability, generosity, you can work on both of those. Philosophical sophistication, it's very useful because it orients you properly. You have a sophisticated sense of the world. You find, for example, that doing things for other people is actually more rewarding than virtually anything else you can do. You know, and you hear you should be of service to other people. Well, if you actually watch yourself, you pay attention to yourself and you do something that helps someone else and it genuinely helps them, I defy you to find another experience that is that satisfying. It's actually quite stunning how satisfying that is. And so that's a very useful thing to realize. And
why is helping another person the most satisfying thing for probably most people when if they're out of their ego of like, I want to buy more things to make me happy in this moment. Why is that such a satisfying thing for human beings?
There's no better strategy there's no better life strategy. I mean, imagine, I could give you a quick sort of technical example. So imagine I take two people and I say, okay, I'm going to give you $100 and you have to give some of it to the person right beside you. And they can either agree or disagree with the split, but if they disagree, you don't get anything. Okay, so a classical economist would say that the person should take the 100, offer the person next to them $1, and the person should accept it because why not? They get $1 instead of nothing. And that's the solution. But what happens is that if you don't offer that other person something close to 50-50, they're likely to tell you to go to hell. Yes, very.
And then you get nothing.
You get nothing too. You think, well, why would people do that? Because they just reject $50 and who cares? And the answer is, well, we don't just play one game with other people. We play a repeating game. And so imagine we did this. So imagine it's a crowd and they're all watching you. And I offer you $100 and you have to share it with the person next to you. And you say, would you like to take $70? And the person says, well, I'm not sure that's fair to you, but if it's okay, yes. But then everyone else sees that. And now they all have an opportunity to pick who they're going to play with next. Well, you're not going to get picked last, are you? Remember what you told me? You didn't want to get picked last, right?
I did not.
Okay, so what you did was you turned yourself into an athlete.
A machine.
Okay.
Always going to get first.
Okay, great. So, but imagine we expand that game.
Yes.
And we say, you want to be the person that everyone wants to play with.
Yep.
Well, then all you have in your whole life is invitations to play. Well, how are you going to be that person? Be productive, straightforward, generous.
Bite it, sip it, slurp it, eat it, drink it. Sip it, drink it.
Your whole life is invitations to play. Well, how are you going to be that person?
Dry?
Mag-butamarit citrate, ang most prescribed for dry cough. Kung may dry cough, mag-Durotas BC. Mas mabilis magpagaling pag Durotas.
Make everyone else better around you, and they're going to want to play with you.
Absolutely. So there you go. And then you get to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how is that not the best possible deal? It's clearly. See, so if the ethical argument is put properly, it is by far the most compelling argument. It's like if you want to have everything you could possibly want and more, then be a good
Choose
person.
Pure Foods corned beef.
The better a person you are, the more likely that is to
100%
happen.
pure beef
That doesn't
with
mean
juicy beefy
that you're
goodness.
completely
An
protected
expertly
against
crafted
getting cut off at
masterpiece.
the knees.
Yan ang binabalik-balikan ko.
There's no better
Pure
strategy.
Foods corned beef, the pure standard.
And you can even think about it selfishly, and I talk about this to some degree beyond order. Let's say that you want to be selfish. You think that's the best possible strategy. Why should I care about others?
Vivo.
Okay, let's say you should only act in your own best interest. Well, then it's like, well, what's your best interest? Well, what does interest mean and what does you mean? What's in your best interest? Your best interest. 3 mysteries. What's best, what's interest? Okay. Well, there's you. But you aren't just you right now. You're you, and you tomorrow, and you next week, and you next month, and you in 5 years, and you in 10 years, and you when you're a pensioner. You're a community of selves stretched across time. And so if you were enlightened and selfish, you would act in a manner that would benefit that entire community across time. And I don't think that's any different than acting on the best possible part for other people. I think they're the same problem. So I think as soon as human beings discovered the future, we were no longer singular individuals. We're instantly each a community. And then the community ethic prevails. And the community ethic is I want to win in a way that makes you win. That's the best possible victory.
If I
Because
win
that
and
can-
no one else wins, then what's the point?
Well, you think it's a zero-sum game. It's either you or me, or maybe I want the comparative status. But I would say even if you want the comparative status, let's say you're motivated by that. What would confer upon you, even hypothetically, more status than to be the most popular person while being chosen for games? I mean, you think about just think for a second about it, because it struck me, that biographical piece. Alfred Adler, who is the psychologist that I talked to you about earlier, he said one of his claims was that many people have a stark memory that sets the course for their life.
That's true. A
Right.
few moments, an instance. Yeah.
And you have exactly that. So Adlerian psychology would be of great interest to you, I suspect.
Interesting.
But partly, you see, what happened was you had a true revelation. You thought, if I'm being picked last, something is wrong. And that's absolutely right. It's unbelievably right. And you played it out first in the athletic domain, but you have to start somewhere.
Right.
So that's a good place to start. Jocko was telling me when we talked this week, he's this tough character, man. You know, and he could have, and I'm not telling tales out of school here. He could have been a criminal, no problem. And he knows that perfectly well. And
He's got
I'm not
discipline.
saying, I'm not saying that as a slur on his character, partly because I believe the Nietzschean dictum that a lot of morality is just cowardice. And whatever he might be, he's not a coward. And so, and just because you obey the laws doesn't mean you're moral, just might mean you're afraid. In any case, so the question is, well, what socialized this brute? Well, he was taught in the Navy SEALs to take care of your team. That's your fundamental purpose. And he noted, and we had a long discussion about this, the successful guys, man, they've got your back.
Wow.
Right. You know that above all. Yeah. And if you aspire to a leadership position among those brutes, let's say, and you aren't someone they know to have your back, they're not following. Or how starting to clean up the room changed their life. That's quite fun because it's something I always tell people to do instead of going out and protesting. Jesus, I just can't stand
Cleaning up
that.
the room?
Yeah.
Meaning?
Well, my sense is that if you want to change the world, you start from yourself and work outward because you build your competence that way. It's like, I don't know how you can go out and protest the structure of the entire economic system if you can't keep your room organized. Well, I made a video call, which was called Message to Millennials, where it was called How to Change the World Properly. A bit of it on the pretentious side, I suppose, but I was trying to produce something that was a counterposition to this idea that what you should do is go out and fix up other people. You know, that's just not right. And there's a New Testament line about that, something about, you know, not worrying too much about the log in your neighbor's eye or about the speck in your neighbor's eye when you have a log in your eye. What would the world be like if people stopped avoiding the things they knew they should do? You know, because the question is, how much are we contributing to the fact that life is an existential catastrophe and a tragedy? How much is our own corruption contributing to that? That's a really worthwhile question. The things you leave undone because you're angry, you're resentful, you're lazy, you have inertia. Well, you consult your conscience and it says, well, you know, that place over there could use a little work. It's the same as working on yourself, and so you clean that up because you can, and then things are a little clearer around you. And you're a little better off because you've practiced a bit, and so you're a little stronger, and then something else manifests itself and says, well, maybe you could like take a crack at fixing me up too. So you decide to do that, and then that gets a little bit more pristine, you know, and soon, and it's humble because you're not exceeding your domain of competence. You know, it's like, don't be fixing up the economy, 18-year-olds. You don't know anything about the economy. It's a massive, complex machine beyond anyone's understanding, and you mess with it at your peril. So, and can you even clean up your own room? No. Well, you should think about that. You should think about that. The truth of the matter is that you have a lot of potential as a child, but none of that is capable of manifesting itself as freedom before you become disciplined. And discipline is a matter of the imposition of order, and the order is necessary, especially for people who are hopeless and nihilistic. That it's not some casual self-help doctrine. It's the truth of the matter is that you have a lot of potential as a child, but none of that is capable of manifesting itself as freedom before you become disciplined. And discipline is a matter of the imposition of order, and the order is necessary, especially for people who are hopeless and nihilistic. That it's not some casual self-help doctrine. It's the truth of the matter is that you have a lot of potential as a child, but none of that is capable of manifesting itself as freedom before you become disciplined. And discipline is a matter of the imposition of order, and the order is necessary, especially for people who are hopeless and nihilistic. That if you don't organize yourself properly, you'll pay for it, and in a big way, and so will the people around you. And I would say, start where you can start. You know, if something announces itself to you as in need of repair, that you could repair, then hey, fix it. You fix 100 things like that, your life will be a lot different. Now, I often tell people too, fix the things you repeat every day, because people tend to think of those as trivial. You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your breakfast, you know, you have your routines that you go through every day. Well, those probably constitute 50% of your life. And people think, well, they're mundane, I don't need to pay attention to them. It's like, no, that's exactly wrong. The things you do every day, those are the most important things you do, hands down. Lay a disciplinary structure on yourself, get the chaos in check, and then you can move towards a state that's freer. It's discipline first. Like, look, if you're going to become a concert pianist, there's going to be several thousand hours of extraordinarily disciplined practice. That's the imposition of order on your potential, let's say. But what comes out of that is a much grander freedom. And so virtually every freedom that you have in life that's true freedom is purchased at the price of discipline.
There's this saying that says, tough times produce strong men produce good times produce weak men produce tough times.
Yes.
If that's the truth, which phase are we in today?
Well, if you think about it historically, you have to say that we're in good times. I mean, that doesn't mean everything about the current times are good, and of course life is always tenuous and difficult, but it's 1919. If you go back 100 years ago, imagine what the last 5 years would have been like, right? You would have been, the entire world was encapsulated in a terrible war. The trench warfare was absolutely brutal, and that was a 5-year period, and then that was followed by the Spanish influenza, which killed 120 million people, and you know, so I'd rather be here now than there then by a substantial margin. And I think life is never easy, even under relatively positive conditions. But I would say that speaking on a global level, there's never been a better time for the majority of people to be alive. And the future, although we're vulnerable and terrible things can always happen to us, it's hard to make a case that the future doesn't look comparatively positive. We're becoming extremely technologically sophisticated, and the world is changing at an incredibly rapid rate, and the only way we're going to be able to manage that in a positive way is if each of us, or as many of us as possible, are capable of making wise and careful and truthful decisions. And if we do that, then, you know, maybe things can continue to improve.
Project manager? Yes, 15 years of experience. Do you have any AI certifications? No, but I'm a fast learner. We'll be in touch.
I don't see any AI skills here. How do you plan to stay relevant?
Project manager? I'm sorry, position filled by someone with AI skills.
Stop. Please stop using ChatGPT like it's Google. Get AI certified in 28 days and you won't recognize yourself.
So I'm over 42 and I just got AI certified in less than a month. One program changed everything. I didn't quit my job or spend thousands on courses. Instead, I joined the 28-day AI challenge.
What if I've never worked with AI before?
Perfect. This challenge is built for people over 40.
Yeah.
A simple learning routine that fits your life, not disrupts it, and the best part, you're AI certified at the end.
So when does the program start showing results?
In 1 week, you'll feel unstoppable.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, you'll have your strategy. In a month, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. Tap the screen to join us. A simple learning routine that fits your life, not disrupts it, and the best part, you're AI certified at the end.
So when does the program start showing results?
In 1 week, you'll feel unstoppable.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, you'll have your strategy. In a month, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. Tap the screen to join us.
When words fail, you know it's real. Fresh. Flame grilled. Serving realness at Burger King. Order now.
Let's say you want to become who you could be in the fullest sense. So let's say you're someone who's going to solve some serious problems. Okay, the first thing you have to do is admit to the seriousness of the problems. That's no joke. And so the first thing is just the terror of the problem itself. And that's enough to paralyze you. And that's the Hydra, that's the Gorgon with the head of snakes. It'll paralyze you and turn you to stone. That's the basilisk in the Harry Potter series. You look at it and it turns you to stone and lurks underneath everything, right? And it's malevolence and tragedy. And so there's that. And then the next is, well, you're going to take responsibility for that? You're really going to do that, are you? That's a hell of a load, man. And so it's daunting to even consider that. And then there's the discipline and responsibility that necessitates, which is also daunting. It's like, oh my God, the problem's that serious. I'm really going to have to get my act together in order to not contribute to it, much less solve it. And so the problem is terrible. And then the solution is daunting. But the upside of that is like, well, there isn't anything better to have than a problem that's worth solving, like that's really worth solving. And so the problem is terrible. And then
Do you think we're in a crisis of purpose right now?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious
пути?
Да, господин. Иду. Служу дракону.
Иду. Укажи путь.
Я иду. Конечно. Зашипела. Конечно. Я иду. Уже дымлю. Конечно. Зашипела. Конечно. Огонь и боль. Огонь и боль. Готов, горит. Заклад! Огонь! Конечно! Сразить их! Я иду. Как хотите.
Покажи путь.
Уже дымлю. Конечно. Конечно, я иду. Как хотите. Зажги. Подчиняюсь. Служу дракону. Хорошо. Зажги меня.
Справедливо.
Да,
Как стрела.
в пути.
Укажи путь.
Иду. Укажи путь.
Как прикажете. Я горю. Уже дымлю. Конечно. Я горю. Уже дымлю. Конечно. Огонь и боль. Уже в пути. Вперед! За дракона! Уже в пути. За дракона! Уже дымлю. Зажги меня. Уже дымлю. Поджарь. Готов. В атаку! За честь! За класс! Конечно. Конечно. Я иду. Я горю.
Да, господин.
Уже в пути. Зашипело. Конечно.
Следую.
Я горю.
Иду. Укажи путь.
Конечно. Зашипело. Зажги меня. Я горю. Зажги меня. Я горю. Уже дымлю. Конечно. Я горю. Зашипело. Конечно. Зашипело. Зажги меня.
Как прикажете. Вперед! За честь! За клан! Конечно, уже в пути.
Конечно, я иду. Конечно. Гори, детка, гори. Готов гореть, поджарим. Гори, зажги меня. Уже дым. Готов гореть.
За клан! За честь! В атаку! Иду!
За ними! Гори, детка, гори, готов гореть, гори, детка, гори, поджарим, родитель.
За дракона! Как прикажете. Конечно, уже в пути. За честь!
Я иду, зашипела.
За дракона! За клан! В атаку!
За ними! Готов гореть, поджарим. Огонь и вода. За ними! Родители, поджарим. За ними! Огонь и бой, поджарим. Готов гореть. За ними! Готов гореть.
Как хотите.
Я иду. За ними поджарим. За ними родитель готов гореть. За ними. Родитель. Гори, детка, гори. Поджарим. Я горю, конечно. Я иду. Уже дымлю. Готов гореть. Зашипело. Конечно. Я иду. Я горю.
Как прикажете.
Уже дымлю. Зашипело. Сразить их. За ними. Готов гореть. Гори, детка, гори. Поджарим. За ними. Сразить их. Конечно. Гори, детка, гори. Сразить их. Гори, детка, гори. Огонь и бой. Поджарим. За ними. Поджарим. Огонь и бой. Гори, детка, гори. Поджарим. За ними. Готов гореть. Сразить их. За ними. Огонь и бой.